Hello, everyone. Welcome to our segment. It is 9:30. We are starting talking about LGBTQ 101. People, this has been a great day. You all have given so much amazing feedback. It has just been an amazing day. I appreciate all of your insights. I may not have been able to like every one of you all's posts because it was so many, but I'm just so very grateful for all of you out there. I'm so happy. I want to give folks time to kind of catch on. Listen, if you're watching this tonight and you want to share this to folks, I want you to share this video tonight. Why? Because we want to talk to people who are LGBTQ. We want to talk to folks who are not LGBTQ on tonight. There's so many topics that we want to talk about. I don't have a curriculum, but you're going to drive this conversation on tonight. How you doing, Tasha? I appreciate all of you all for staying tuned. Hi, Teresina. It is such a blessing just to be on tonight. I'm so very excited. I'm going to be drinking water because I feel a little dehydrated. But just know I am taking care of myself, okay? Hello, Latasha. Hi, Ashley. You all have been so very amazing today watching just being active on the page. I really appreciate it. These are some necessary conversations. LGBTQ 101. I'm going to leave about 3 to 4 minutes for folks to try to get on. The connection may or may not be working, but I want to give folks a chance to just watch and kind of get engaged to kind of warm up, okay? So today, for those who may not have been following the page, we talked about LGBTQ 101. We asked a series of questions. What does it mean to be lesbian? What does it mean to be gay? What does it mean to be bisexual? What does it mean to be trans? What does it mean to be queer or questioning? All of those questions were asked today. What does it mean to experience homophobia? What does it mean to feel... Does the lifestyle feel like it's a sin? All of these things. Hey, Jackson. Oh, God bless you, man of God. I love you. I really miss you. We had an opportunity to worship together at a ministry in Virginia. I really appreciate you. Hi, Lily. Yeah, so this is going to be a great night. I really think that we're going to get into some good conversation. I do not have a curriculum in front of me. This is a free for all tonight. So I want to encourage you all to go ahead and start asking questions, to go ahead and start engaging, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, okay? Let me drink some more water, take care of myself. Okay. Yeah, I still got my glasses on tonight. I try to look a little educated. But I really do appreciate all of you all for watching. Listen. This video, amen, I miss worshiping with you as well. This video is so very important because we want to talk to folks. Hey, Ma. Hey, Miss Angie. I really appreciate all of you all for watching right now. This video is not just for LGBTQ folks. This video is for non-LGBTQ folks. So I want to get that out of the way right now, that disclaimer. This video is for not only LGBTQ folks, it's for non-LGBTQ folks. Why? Because for years, the church has failed LGBT community. School systems have failed the LGBT community. So many institutions have failed the LGBTQ community. Why? Because we're not educated on what LGBTQ is. There is so much to understand within this culture that even I don't know. So these are conversations that need to continue to happen. Why? Because the more we understand each other, the more respect we can have for each other. In and out of church, in and out of school, in and out of other institutions where people don't understand what it means to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, all of those things. Okay? So please, please, please get engaged. We're going to start with just the questions that we asked on the general acronym LGBTQ. Everyone had that right. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning. All of those things were right. And after asking that, one of the things that I looked at is how many different answers it was on the page. When we asked what is lesbian, what is gay, what is bisexual, what is transgender, what is queer question, there were so many different answers on the page. And that is the uniqueness of identity. We identify in so many different ways. So what happens in our culture, what happens in the LGBTQ culture, what happens in non-LGBTQ culture is so many people want to label things their way, and they don't respect the ways that other people label things. In other words, how one person may identify as a lesbian may not be how another person identifies, and the roles that play into that may change. And so people, we have to learn how to respect each other's preferences. We have to learn how to live and respect each other's truths. It is so very important out there. So I want to give you a chance to just kind of ask some questions, kind of get the conversation going. I don't want to talk the whole time. I want you all to drive this conversation as we have the last couple weeks. I will say that these live videos are being brought to you by the Breaking Chains Project, which is a nonprofit organization that I founded, and I'm going to plant in Virginia. So please be on the lookout for that for folks who are in Virginia. We are going to plant this organization out there. Oh, I love that, Jackson. Loving God's beautiful tribe quietly. Yes, LGBTQ. I like that. That's a nice acronym. Someone else on the page came up with a nice one earlier today, too. I really appreciate the creativity behind all of that. That is a really great acronym. Okay, so we starting off pretty deep. Dollface asked the question, why does the word homosexual bother some LGBTQ people? I didn't understand, Robin, or no offense to anyone. I appreciate your question. I think that this is the space to have these conversations. So many times we would go with what we feel, and we'll just say homosexual, or we'll say all of these terms, and we honestly don't realize that we're offending people. I think that the church does it a lot, and it's the language that's in the Bible, right? So I think that the reason why, and this is my opinion, if other people can tune in and can chime in as well, I feel like the reason why it's been so offensive to me as an individual is because it has been used for years as a derogatory term to talk about a perverseness within the gay culture, and that to me is offensive. LGBTQ could be a great replacement for homosexuals, and I think that we need to really break that term down, because a lot of people use it based on the actual definition of it in the dictionary. But there's a lot of people who use the word homosexual as a very derogatory term. So I think that people get kind of cringy when they hear that term, because they don't know if people are coming for them, and myself included. When someone calls me a homosexual, I don't agree with that. I don't feel like that is who I am and how I identify. And I think that Dollface, that is a question that we're going to keep on talking about. Why? And folks, chime in. What do you think about the word homosexual? I want you to help me on tonight. Let's talk about this. What does the word homosexual mean for you? Because some people may not be offended. I posed this question. I work at an LGBTQ organization, and I posed this question to some of my coworkers, and they were like, no, I'm not offended by that. There were some who were like, yes, I'm very offended by that. And I want to talk about why that is such an offensive word. We had someone, for those who are just tuning in, someone came up with the question and asked, why is the word homosexual so very oppressive in the LGBT community? And I would love to hear some folks' feedback. How you doing, Benta? I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, and I apologize so very much. But I just want to send you out early birthday wishes. I definitely appreciate you for challenging me to sing happy birthday to you tomorrow. I'm going to try to make sure that happens. Okay, so let's talk about why we don't like the term homosexual. What is it? What comes up for people when you hear the word homosexual? And there are some people who get offended by the word dyke. And I'm going to say some terms on tonight that I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I want to put it into the space. There are folks who use the term faggot. There are folks who use the term sissy. There are folks who use the other derogatory terms like transsexual, different things that may offend people. Let's talk about that. What is that offensive? Why is it so offensive? And I think that the reason why this question is so very important, because unless we educate people on how we want to be identified as, then we can't hold people accountable for addressing us wrong. Does that make sense? So we have to really define what it is that we feel is wrong or right with being called homosexual. So let's talk about that. Okay, so Lakeisha said, because it's used as an insult for so long in church, hip hop, etc. Okay, thank you so much, Bente. I hope I said that right. Thank you for sounding that out. I appreciate that. Lakeisha, I think that you raised an amazing point as well. It's used as an insult for more people. And I want folks who even use the term. There are some folks on this watching right now that may use the term homosexual. I want us to talk about this in a loving way. We're not going to come at each other because It is so very important that we address these uncomfortable spaces, right? The LGBT community has been around for years. There may not have been as many people that have been out, but the LGBTQ community has been around for years. And there are terms that were used in the 60s that just don't cut it for now. That would be the same way. And I believe one of my friends on Facebook said today, it would be the same, how some folks use homosexual is the same way other people use the term, the N-word. I don't want to say that because it triggers me to even say it. So let's talk about why it's out there. Dollface says, I'm not, because when people first started really coming out publicly, they came out as homo. Absolutely. And I'm not even gonna lie to you. There's some clients that I have who are in their 60s and 70s that still deem that term is acceptable. And that's okay. When you're using it as in a positive way, it is okay to say that. However, most people use it in a negative way. And that's what gives people the wrong, like that eerie feeling about it. Tracy, for me, it isn't what you say, it's how you, absolutely, it's how you say it, right? Within the culture, right? We have folks who are in the LGBTQ community that can call each other gay or, oh, you just a faggot. We can say that to each other and it's culturally accepted. However, if someone outside the LGBT community says it, then we get offended. We need to talk about why that's so very important and how it's accepted in some instances and not accepted in others. Tasha says, I think it's because it's always been used in a negative way, especially in the church when that word is spoken. It is used to make you feel bad or convicted. So there's a lot of attachment to the word homosexual. When you use the word homosexual, what does it mean? In many instances, in the most instances that I've heard it in, it's been in a church setting. And that's what, and most people have used it to identify the way that God looks at the LGBTQ community. That's why I become uncomfortable with that term. And so other folks have said, Bente says, homosexual seems nasty. I don't like dyke or fag. Very offensive to me. Very offensive to me as well. We've addressed these terms. Why? Because it's so very important to talk about it. It's so very important to just put it out in the space to say, you know what? I don't appreciate being identified as this. You know, I'm sure there's some people right now, someone commented and was like, I don't even know that the term transsexual was offensive. And in today's language, it can be offensive. Most folks who identify as transgender would like to be identified as transgender or trans feminine or trans masculine. There are many terms. And it's so important that you remember that you don't have to know all of these terms. Just ask people how they would like to be addressed. It's that simple. Respect starts with asking people their preference and how they would like to be addressed. Yes, Eve, those words are definitely used to make people feel worthless. Dyke growing up was a word to gay bash a lesbian. This word has not been reclaimed. I've been called a dyke and a bull. I've never heard bulldagger, and I appreciate you for bringing that into the space. I definitely think that those terms have been used in so many ways as negative, and it's just important that we talk about how we can, some of those words can't be reclaimed, but how we can kind of move past being called those derogatory terms, because it can cause great offense. Jackson Hall, homosexual, it is what it is. The word in and of itself is not offensive. The context, intent, and purpose in which it is used can be offensive. If it is being used to put down an insult, but the word itself doesn't offend me. Okay, I definitely appreciate that. I think that recently I had to go to my school and we were talking about homosexuality. And in the context of just being educated on it, it wasn't offensive. But it was when folks in the audience started addressing LGBTQ folks as those homosexuals that it became offensive. So I definitely agree with that. It is definitely based on the term and how the content in which it is being used and how people are addressing it. So thank you for that. This is a great question. We're going to kind of transition because we've been talking about that for quite a minute. I hope everyone has a little bit of clarity on why some of the terms are offensive and why some are not, and the culture behind why some of those terms are being actively used. Bente asked the question. I want to go into this right now. Why do we have to have labels? Why can't we just live our truth? That is an amazing question. When we talk about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, there's so many other terms: intersex, asexual, pansexual, demisexual, all of these, men who have sex with men. There's so many different terms out there that there becomes like boxes that we categorize the LGBTQ community in, right? And so people would then begin to say, well, because you're a lesbian, one of y'all have to be the man. I know that there's people who identify as lesbian and somebody has said that to you or whatever. And so when we think about labels, it does sometimes cripple the LGBTQ community. And I want to put that question out there. Bente asked, why do we have to have labels? I want to know what people think about labels. How have labels impacted your life? How have labels impacted your partner's lives or other people's lives that you know that are in the community? I'm giving folks some time to respond. Seems to be the main topic at church. But what about the terms of the, okay, this is still going back to the last question. We're going to kind of move forward and just talking about why there seems to be labels. Why there seems to be labels. Why are there labels in the LGBTQ community, and how does it impact the LGBTQ community? I kind of gave my spiel. I want you all to give your spiel as well. All right. Well, I'm going to fill in the blank. Okay. So definitely labels you have within the LGBTQ community. You have femme, you have stud, you have all of these other labels that become so confusing. I'm right with you, Tasha. It is so confusing. I cannot keep up. It is so very confusing. I like to say I'm who I am. I am Robin, and this is how I show up. And people will definitely try to label you. People will definitely do that. But you have to be comfortable. And I think that I was sharing the conversation this week with a friend. We have to be able to understand and know who we are in this community, right? How you show up is your truth. Tia, I think labels and categories were created as a way to collect. Oh, that is a great way to look at that. I never even looked at that like that. To collect data for statistics. And that may be true. It's so very unique that we come up with all of these terms and you know, it kind of goes nowhere. It causes more confusion within the LGBTQ community. I remember earlier reading some folks' posts about gender roles in the community. There's an assumption that there has to be a masculine person and there has to be a very feminine person in a non-heterosexual relationship. So if there's a gay couple, there has to be a more masculine individual and a more feminine, and that is very stereotypical, and it's very offensive to some folks because there are many people who feel like they have to play in these roles, and if they don't play in these roles, then they're not culturally accepted within the LGBT community. That is so very important, and I want I want to know folks' thoughts on that. Nikki says, I don't have labels. I'm just me. I used to do labels because I thought that was how it was supposed to be, but as I grow older and wiser, we realize we don't need them. Okay, so very important. No label is now a label because to me it's more than one person claiming it. Okay. Right, so now even no label is a label. Tia says, in a way that's not offensive. Find a compromise between and to find a compromise between communities. I'm not sure if that was something that was said earlier, but I'm going to move to Bente says, I think that labels are present because we want to be included. Absolutely. But it's sometimes it can affect us and confuse us. And then it becomes judgment comes up in the community. Absolutely. Have you ever been folks who dress or who present more masculine? Have you ever been asked, you know, who's the man in the relationship? You know, that those things come up so often. Because there are many people who feel like there have to be strict roles, and that's a heteronormative activity. I mean, a heteronormative thought. And what do I mean by heteronormative? Simply, it means that most folks build LGBTQ relationships as if they were heterosexual relationships, meaning there's a more dominant role and there's a more passive role. And that doesn't have to happen. I think these conversations get confusing. You have folks who feel some type of way about, two masculine women being together, and folks feel a way about two feminine women being together. And there's just this cultural, there's this confusion that happens within the LGBTQ community, and it's no longer acceptable. It becomes oppressive within the community. So this is what's so very important, because if we're oppressing each other within the community, then there is no way, hear me, that we're going to ever be able to be culturally accepted outside of the community. Why? Because people are going to continue to label us, and we're going to continue to label ourselves, and we're going to put ourselves in this box that we can't get ourselves out of. Hey, Janta, I appreciate you. So proud of what you're doing as well. Thank you so much for your support. Jackson Hall, reality. There will always be labels. Absolutely. Straight, gay, short, tall, masculine, feminine, Jew, Gentile, long before statistic and record keeping came into existence. How someone labels you or sees you. Wait, I lost my place. It shouldn't matter. How do you see and define yourself? And I want to stop right there. I think that is so very important when we talk about identity-based stuff. It is so very important that we understand who we are and live in our truth. And that is for everyone. I'm talking about lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, questioning folks. I'm talking about people, men who have sex with men on the down low. I'm talking about everyone. It is so important that you live in your truth. Be who you are. I think that the hardest part in my struggle was not being able to be who I was. Why? Because growing up as a minister, I started preaching in 2008. So I've been preaching almost 10 years. So growing up as a minister, being raised in a Baptist church where I was taught that this was wrong, it was so hard coming into my own identity. And I know that a lot of people share that same background. And so it's very important when we think about this thing, we have to learn and understand what it means to live in our own truth. People, you're absolutely right, Jackson, are going to label us forever. We're going to always be labeled. Oh, that's that girl right there with the locks in her hair. Oh, that's that person. Or we're going to be, that's that black girl. That's this or that. We're going to be labeled. But who do you see yourself as? That is the most important key. And it's so hard. This journey within the LGBTQ community, the hardest journey is learning how to to live in your own truth. That is the hardest part. And there are many people who are struggling right now on this video. They're struggling trying to figure out who they are. Why? Because the church tells us to be one way. Society tells us to be another way. The schools tell us to be another way. We have so many different messages coming to us from different angles. We don't know who we are. And that's where the problem comes in. You're absolutely right, Jackson Hall. I want to know folks' thoughts on that. Bente says, it's kind of okay and sexy to others if two feminine women are together, but if two masculine women, they're looked down upon. Right. These are the labels, right? And so through these segments, and I want to try to do an LGBTQ one-on-one every month at least. Why? Because these are ongoing conversations and we want to pick topics to talk about. It's so important that we talk about these things. Why? Because if we don't know who we are, we're going to continue to walk around confused. We're going to continue to walk around in places where we just don't know. We're not going to be able to respond to what's happening in our communities if we don't know who we are. And so many of us within the LGBTQ community are fighting amongst ourselves to try to prove something, and we don't have to prove anything. Just wake up and be who you are. And that's the hardest part. And so I want to get folks' thoughts, folks who are not comfortable being out. I want y'all to talk to me tonight. And for those who can't really talk to me on the video, inbox me. I have access to my inbox right now. I am on my laptop as well as my computer. So I have access to my inbox. And I want folks to be able to talk about this. Why? Because this is the hardest part in being who you are in the LGBTQ community. You have so many people who feel like they cannot be themselves. You have so many people feel like they have way too much to lose to be who they are and be themselves. It is so very important that we learn what that key is to being who we are, how our identity speaks up for us. Y'all talk to me. Y'all talk to me. I think I missed some comments earlier. But this is so very important, and I'm pausing a little bit to give you all some time to talk, because I don't want to talk at you all. I want to have a conversation with you all, because it's so very important that I don't want to push my beliefs on you. I want you to help me as well. There's some areas in my life that I don't understand within the LGBTQ community, but I'm actually able to say that out loud. Why? Because I want to do better. I want to know what it is to address people appropriately. I want to know what it means to love people in their truth, to love people in their truth. That is the most important part. How do we love people in their truth if we don't know who we are? Nikki says we judge so hard in our community. It's bad. That the judge is judging the judge, right? So the oppressed. So we have been oppressed by all of these labels. We've been oppressed by all of these standards. We've been oppressed by all of these different things. And now we're beginning to oppress each other. And it's so very sad. It's really sad. Why? Because on my timeline, often it's, well, studs do this and femmes do this and gay people do this. And it's so many different areas where we're divided, that we're not even educated on who each other are. And really, it's not about being educated on really who each person is per se, as a label is deeming that. We're talking about how we can love and learn to love each other and respect their truths. That means that one day, today, I may want to dress masculine, and tomorrow I may want to put on a dress. And that should be okay, to live in that identity without people asking, well, what do you think, you a girl today? Are you the girl today? And that comes up for people all the time. So people are afraid to live in their truth within the LGBTQ community. That's sad. I'm thinking about getting a change, and I'm scared people will look down on me. What should I do? Young T. Hall. And I'm not sure. I want you to elaborate a little bit more on thinking about getting a change. Once you elaborate more, we'll definitely address that question, okay? Let me know what you're talking about. Bente says, I used to be uncomfortable and was forced in the church to change and be straight and effeminate. I hated myself, and I thought God did not love me. That is so very important. I'm going to be honest. Again, I've been preaching since 2008, so I am a licensed and ordained pastor. And it's so very important I say that. Why? Because it was culturally accepted when I dressed feminine in the church. But as soon as I began to dress masculine, it was, no, you're not invited to our church anymore. No, you cannot be at our services anymore. And that is such a truth for so many people. So many people feel oppressed within just trying to love God in their identities. And that is so very important. I'm glad that you brought that into the space, because so many people are struggling with their identities. Why? Because the one place that they want to be accepted, and that is in the Lord's house, it may not happen. And so we find ourselves creating new identities to try to fit into spaces that we want to be accepted in. And we end up oppressing our own reality. We end up hurting ourselves. Why? Because we can't be ourselves. We can't be open because it oppresses too many other people. So we oppress ourselves trying to make other people happy. Anybody else have that experience? Hey, bestie, I love you. Hey, Anthony, I love you too, you little brother. Ashley says, Young Hall, love yourself. Some will accept and some won't, but it will drain you to cover. Yes, just what we were talking about. It will drain you. It will drain you. Folks, I sat in church for years with a dress on, with stockings on, looking like I am not comfortable. God cannot use me at my fullest potential because I'm not myself. And that was so very tough. But I got to a point where I decided that I was going to step out and be who I was, regardless of if people accepted me or not. And the reality of it is that people stopped accepting me. When I started dressing masculine, more people honored me when I was feminine. And I had to accept that loss and still believe in my truth. Why? Because it was important that I was able to be open enough to be myself. And I want to share that with you all because it's so important that I'm not telling you to go against your pastor's wishes or go against other people's standards. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm simply encouraging you to live your truth, however that shows up. If you are gay, then you're gay. If you are bisexual, you're bisexual. If you're transgender, then that's who you are. Live in that truth and learn how to love yourself. Because as you begin to love yourself, other people will come around. The folks who are supposed to love you will come around. And I know that that's very tough. Why? Right? When you have no support. But definitely reach out. That's why we're here at the Breaking Chains Project. We want to help you live your truth. Help you to live in who God says that you are. That's so very important. Renita says, we are guarded and we run. people off with our attitude and our aggressive personality. And sometimes people are having attitude and they're aggressive in their personality because some people are aggressive in their personality because they've been oppressed for so long that the only thing they know how to do is oppress. And it's sad. It happens within our communities. So we can't even come together as one to support one another in living in their truth. That's going to stop. Right now, we have the Break a Chains Project. We are going to help you live in your truth. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns, and you cannot comment on this video, you can hit us up in our inbox. We are definitely here for you. I can't fix everything that's going on, but I definitely can help you move into the path of living in your truth and what that means. Young T, you know me personally. Just some advice for Young T. I'm not going to read that out loud. I'm going to go back to Young T's comment. It says, uh-oh. Y'all's comments went away. Oh, got it. Okay. Young T says, I'm a stud, but I feel like I should have been a man. It's hard for me because I don't know what to do. And that is the story. I work with LGBTQ folks, and that is the story of most trans identified people. They feel like they are not in there may be a person who was assigned feminine at birth or assigned female at birth who feels like they are supposed to be male. And that is a sign of some of identity concerns as far as being trans. And that's when those questions come up. Those questions come up. And I want to let you know, Young T Hall, that it is okay to have those questions and to have those feelings. I want to encourage you. I don't know where you live at, but I want to encourage you. If there's an LGBTQ counseling agency near you, and I'm not telling you that counseling is the key, but to talk to some folks that are there who are experts in that field to just be able to talk you through how you feel, because that's a heavy decision that you have to make. And guess what? The world may not like it, but it's so important that you live in your truth. If that's who you feel like you are, then and I know there's a lot of pastors and preachers right now who are going to send me to hell tonight because I'm telling you this, but I'm going to sit here flat-footed and say it on Good Friday that it is so important that you live your truth. Why? Because God will never be able to pour into you. You will never be able to reach your fullest potential when you're hiding and covering up stuff. Oh, this is an identity about me that I don't want to share. When you're shielding yourself, you're never going to be able to be used to your fullest potential. You're never going to be able to get to your highest peak of happiness. And that is so very important. Okay. So I want to tell you that right now, wherever you're located, I will help you connect to some services. We have a national coalition of networks. I will help you connect to services because it's so very important that you understand your identity. Okay. Jackson Hall. I've always been me and done me, absolutely, and it has not stopped me from reaching any goals or accomplishing anything. Shake the dust off your feet and keep moving. There's room for you, absolutely. There's room for your gifts. There's room for your gifts. There's room for you in certain places, and I think that everybody's truth is different, right? I'm sharing my truth. However, my truth is I could not reach my greatest potential until I decided to cut the cord on my fakeness and lying to myself about who I was. For years, I tried to date men. I tried to do things to make my family proud, to make other people proud of me. But it wasn't until I decided, you know what, this is who I am. This is who I am, and everything about me shows up, and I still love God, and I still preach, and I still can sing, and I still worship him, and I still give him glory, and I still know that he loves me. That is so very important in living in that truth, okay? Bente said, I did that and was miserable. I'm sure you're talking about living a different life and was miserable. Eve Dallas said, I once heard someone say that the only sin in the black community is that is heavy. The only sin in the black community is homosexuality. And that obviously is a lie. And when we don't seek the truth, we'll fall into deception and believe in those things. The only sin in the black community is homosexuality. And we'll just live with that thing, and that thing will eat us away. And we would have lived half of our lives believing that and been miserable the whole way. We thank you for releasing that. And we want to go ahead and declare that is a lie. Okay. I came out, Adolphe says, I came out as an early young teen to my family and friends, and they labeled me as a person who don't care what others think about me. It's not that I just have always been open to supporting my own truth. Absolutely. And I appreciate your story. So there are some folks who have always been able to live their truth. There are some folks who still can't live their truth right now. And there's no shame to that. I want to let you know, if you're watching this video right now and you're unable to live in your truth, that's okay. It took me 10 years. It may take you 20. It's okay. But every day of your life, take a step into living your truth. Look at yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what? I'm the most handsomest gay person out there. I'm the most beautiful lesbian. I am the most beautiful trans person. Why? Because we have to spend time validating our truths and validating ourselves. Because if we don't validate ourselves, we can't expect society to do it. We have to come together as a community and say, you know what, this is who I am. This is how I show up. And I still want to be in church. I still want to sing. I still want to do all of these things. Why? Because I still love God. And understanding that even in you living in your truth, other people won't respect it. They may not respect it, but it's so very important that you learn how to be okay with those folks not accepting it. Ashley, when do most understand it's not a phase, but it's about who you are? When do most? Do you mean folks inside the community or outside the community? Let me know. I'm gonna come back to your question, okay? It's so important to be who you are. Hey, Tay Tay. Jackson, I appreciate your encouragement. Psalm 139:14 says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I like to pose this question. Now, I'm going to start something right here when I ask this question. I just did a research paper on identity-based stuff, LGBTQ stuff. And one of the things I asked was, what does God look like? That is a question that I want somebody to try to answer, right? I looked in the scripture. What does God look like? How do we know that God is a man? Was God gay? And I know some folks don't get an attitude right now. That's okay. But it's so important that we understand, even from the beginning of creation, that it is not really detailed as to the characteristics of God. No one has truly seen God. So we have literally man-made labels to say, this is who you are, this is right, this is wrong, you can't do that, you can't do that. And we have no clue who God is and what he looks like. And so because of that identity link that's missing, we find ourselves trying to make other people feel bad for not reflecting God, for not reflecting the God that we don't even know what he looks like. I want to know people's thoughts about that, because I'm not coming at it like I believe in God. I want y'all to know that I love God with everything that's in me, but it's so very important that we understand the basics. Churches are teaching about masculinity and femininity and all of these things and homosexuality. People are teaching about these things, but half of the people who are teaching about these things don't know God. And the key important part is that God, we know him by his characteristics of love. We know him by his characteristics of peace. We know him by the qualities that he possessed that cannot be seen, that can only be felt. And so we focus so much on the outward identity, and we're missing the very inward part. We're missing that. And so I want to know folks' thoughts about that. Bestie said, I'm late, but earlier someone said the judge being a judge. I found many things we search normality and begin to and to be better than because someone told us that we were less than. Hurt people. Absolutely. We judge the judge. We are the oppressors. Why? Because we have been hurt. We've been hurt. We have been hurt. I was hurt at the age of 16 when I was brought in front of the church and people said, come out, and all of these things that were happening in front of the church. And people started teaching about homosexuality and all of these things that were just very oppressive to my soul. And so what I started to do, I started to convert myself and walk around my school in high school. Folks, if anybody went with me to high school, they would know. Robin Beck walked around with her Bible, and I was oppressing everybody else who was not like me. Why? Because somebody had oppressed me. And so we have to look at how we accept and love other people. That's why it's so important that we understand our truths so that we can respect other people's truth. Okay? Yes, they say come as you are, but it just doesn't happen. They don't mean it. I can't tell you how many times I walked up in the church, and yes, I have a whole lot of ties, probably 50 ties and a whole lot of dress shirts. And I come in there, and immediately when I come in with my tie, people start preaching about homosexuality. It happens. It happens in our culture every day. And now the key is, how can we learn how to be in our truth and other people not respect it? How can we still be okay with that? How can we still grow and be better as individuals when other people don't respect our truth? That's the key. My mother, Nikki, after years later, is finally accepting me. But she told me when I came out that I became a new person in her eyes. But the truth is that it was a weight lifted off my chest and I was free. So in other words, Nikki, you're saying that when you came out, you were able to be free, and that free spirit became different to your parents, and that's okay. It took a long time for me I came out, but it took a long time for me to be confident and hold my head up and say, this is who I am, without feeling like, uh-oh, somebody gonna say something to me. Uh-oh, my feelings are about to be hurt, and I'm on guard. And this happens all the time in families. Let's be honest. A lot of our families are very religious, and we believe in God, and we believe in a judging God. A lot of our families believe in a judging God, but don't believe in a loving God. And that's the total difference. I'm sorry, I'm getting through these comments very slowly, but I'm coming. Unscripted said, not me. I love me in my life. As long as my mom still loved me and God, that's all that matters to me. She passed in 99, still loved me for who I was, or still love me for who I am. I really didn't care what no one had to say about me. You lived your truth since the age. I appreciate you, Unscripted, for sharing your story. You've been living your truth since age 13. And I want folks who are seasoned in this thing to be able to say, you know what? I've lived my truth since 18 or 13, and I want to help you live your truth. Come on, let's help other people understand what it means to live in truth, okay? Bente, God looks like all of us, okay? I was just sharing this earlier, how God made man and woman in the very beginning, Adam and Eve, right? We talked about that. We talk about that. And so in order for God to have made a person who was feminine, or that was a woman, he had to have some type of feminine characteristics. How would he know? And so we have to understand that we're like the garden, right? You have daisies in the garden, you have roses, you have daffodils, you have all kinds of plants in a garden. We're all in this garden, but we all look different. And what's beautiful about the garden is that it all looks different, but it's all beautiful, and it's all shaped, and it all reflects the very presence of God. And when you begin to see the world from a different lens, that, you know what, every piece of God's creation, even the creation I don't understand, is beautiful, then we're reaching a different place in God. We're reaching a different place where we're actually moving into greater relationship with God, because we have to understand that God is a reflection of me. I am confident that when I pray, that the Lord hears me. He doesn't say, oh, there's that gay girl that's praying to me. Let me not listen to her today. I'm confident that the Lord hears me. Why? Because he loves me just as I am in my truth. Okay. Nikki says, nobody knows what God looks like, but they say he has skin of bronze and hair of wool. And that's all. Yeah. And the Bible is not very clear. There's some areas in the Bible where it talks about God being very big. And it talks about God and other characteristics, but it doesn't give a detailed image of what God looks like. And that is the important piece. The fact that we don't even know who our creator looks like is so very important, because we now have a responsibility to use our imaginations to say, you know what? It doesn't matter what God looks like. What matters is that he loves me. What matters is that he gives me peace. What matters is that I find joy in him. What matters is that he's my everything. What matters is that when I'm crying, he's my comforter. That's what matters. And as we live in that truth, that's when identity moves out of the way and our hearts and our spirits can be received by him. I hope that makes sense to some folks out there. Young T Hall, to me, God is who God is. God made us for who we are. It makes me mad when people say that we are sins, but at the end of the day, God made us for who we are at the end of the day. Whoa. Because I don't go to church, I mean, I don't believe in God. I do love God. So in other words, you're saying that because you don't go to church, you don't want to be labeled as someone who doesn't believe in God. And I really appreciate that. Thank you, Jackson Hall. I thank you for bringing the scriptures tonight, man of God. Okay. You better bring them scriptures. It says God looks like us. Genesis 1:27 says that we were created in his image. Was he gay? I love that question, but no. I wouldn't go that far. And I didn't impregnate excuse me, I didn't impregnate Joseph. He knocked Mary up. Now, the Apostle Paul, that dude okay. Thank you, Jackson. I want to make this clear. I wasn't saying that God was gay. I wasn't saying that at all. But I do feel like you heard me clearly. I was just in case someone else felt like that. I was not saying that God was gay. I was only lifting up different identities because it doesn't matter the identity, right? When we look at the scripture, we look at the characteristics of God. Every scripture in the Bible talks about some form of characteristic that God had. And that's the important piece. So when I lift up those questions, it's just to generate your mind like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. But I definitely don't feel like God was gay at all. I do feel like the identity of God was not revealed because it didn't matter. And I think that that's where the church and that's where many folks go wrong. Okay. Unscripted. People judge you if you're doing good or bad. You can't please everyone. Love is where you find it. No one sin is better than another. I'm just saying, okay? I thank you and I appreciate you for that. Dollface, I love my church, Tabernacle Baptist Church, of love and acceptance in Atlanta, Georgia. Amen. God bless you for your bishop and you sharing your church. If folks are in Atlanta, that it may be a safe place for you to go and worship. Praise God. God is asexual. Heavenly Father, earthly mother, I am that I am. Amen. And I appreciate your insight. This is a man of God. I really appreciate, your insight bringing in the word of God. I really do appreciate that. While other folks are bringing in different forms of truth, I definitely appreciate every variety of truth that's presented on this page tonight. And I know that there are a lot of people who won't agree. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm simply saying and giving you different perspectives of looking at things. Why? Because so often when we put ourselves in this tunnel vision of thinking, we box ourselves in and we become miserable. We live so many years of our lives miserable because of what mama said or what grandma said and what all these people said about God. And we never seek him. We never seek him for ourselves. That's so very important. Nikki, before coming out, I was rebelling a lot because I was living in the shadows of me and my mother would argue a lot. But when I became free, the new me, you and your mother became best friends. So you feel like in coming out, you actually helped in a relationship that was different. And your rebellion probably was connected to you not being comfortable in who you are. Thank you for sharing that truth. Amen. Jay says, I'm so glad that God loves me for me. Eve, I was surprised to find out how many people who are gay and live in the gay life every day, but their personal opinion is that being gay is wrong. So you basically, I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, Eve. You're saying that you're surprised at how many people are gay and judging other gay people. Talk to me a little bit more about that. I want to go back to that. Unscripted says, right, and he loves me just as much as he loves the next person that's straight. Okay. I definitely appreciate everyone's feedback. And this is a very healthy and very needed conversation because so often, we can't have these conversations. Gender, sex, sexuality. We're not talking about this in the church. So we're building a platform to talk about it right here. Why? Because it needs to happen. We need to understand who we are. God created us uniquely, individually. He created us to be amazing beings, and we have to learn that truth. Jackson says, God's identity was not revealed and explained in detail for good reason. If we can describe him, we can picture him. If we can picture him, we can draw and define him. If we can draw and define him, we can pick out imperfections and blemishes. If we could do that, we could take away from the divine side. Absolutely. And in the midst of doing that, in the midst of also being able to pick and pry at God, we also will pick and pride other people for not having those characteristics like God. And that's another important piece I don't know what just happened, y'all, but I'm so very sorry. That's definitely an important piece that comes about in talking about the identities of God, is that we assume who God is. And that assumption, now we can use that to oppress other people. And that's when it becomes not love. That's not love. Okay. My bestie says, I beg to differ a bit. I like a little difference in opinion. I beg to differ a bit. If we are made in his image, then he's all the above. Black, white, Asian, straight, gay, poor, rich. He said we are made in his image so that we could get over image. So that we can understand that correlating the image of God isn't something anger. I'm sorry, I'm having all kinds of trouble tonight. I apologize. But bestie, I just want to kind of reiterate what you're saying. Basically, you're saying that if we're made in the image of God, then he is everything that shapes and defines who we are. And so that's a little bit of a different opinion. I appreciate that, bringing it to the light. How do people feel about that? I see Bente says, I was thinking the same thing. Jay says, I truly appreciate you in this group. You really bring out thinking questions that gave me a safe place to share. And I think that that's the most important piece. There is no right or wrong, right? We're all learning this every day. We're all learning about ourselves every day. There is no right or wrong. And I think that for so long, we have been taught that you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. We haven't been given a safe place to share and talk about who we are and how our identities show up in a room. Nikki, God accepts you. I said it in the comment earlier today. And he will never turn his back on us or put nothing more on us than we can bear. It's the devil trying to stop our truth. He shall not win. My bestie says, God is love, whether there's... What?